Gabe, you did not get a 300. So. Okay, so assignments are here, okay? Right here, and then the model poems here, all right? Okay, let's talk about a few things while they're passing out papers. I have no dry erase. Oh, here we go. All right, so on your paper today, on your papers that I'm returning to you, you are seeing certain symbols. This is important. So get out a sheet of paper or something that you can write a note about this. Anywhere. I don't care where you write it down. Those of you who had me before, you may think, oh, I already know this stuff. And you might. Okay? So, what does this mean when I put this on your paper?
Paragraph.
Paragraph. So what does that mean you do? Indent. Start a new paragraph. Okay? Anytime you see that, what does it mean, Gabe?
New paragraph.
New paragraph. Okay. Anytime you see this, what does it mean? Run-on sentence. That means your sentence needs help. Okay? You have not put a period in, or you don't have commas and I can't follow. It doesn't mean you have to fix it a certain way. It just needs help. Okay? Okay, here's the rule that I need everyone to remember, because this is a really, really important rule if you go into higher level work. What does this rule mean? What does this mean?
Finger roll.
Thank you, Isaac. Very good. Okay? Elijah, what does that mean?
Finger roll. Oh.
Finger rule. Elijah, whoever you're sitting by, there's chatting going on. Jaron, don't let him reel you in. All right? You got to be strong here, Jaron. All right? Finger rule. This is very important. Everyone take a note on this. Don't be surprised if next week I have a pop quiz question on this. I'm serious. It's that important to me. So you know this rule, Malachi?
The finger roll?
Yeah. Because you don't have a pencil out to write anything down, so I'm assuming you've got it. Okay. Here's how this works, okay? Okay. All right, here's my sentence. Now, we normally call this the finger rule because you can cover the conjunction with your finger. Okay? Right, Sidge?
Yeah.
Guys, I have now said 3 times this is very important to me. There will be a pop quiz, and I don't want you to say, I didn't understand it. Understand it now. Okay? So in class today, I'm going to call it the hand rule, okay, because I have to use my whole hand to cover the and. Does everybody get that? Okay. The common conjunctions that this would work with are the following words. Give me a conjunction. And. Or. But. There's 2 others that sometimes might get used. No. You except might happen, but. I'm sorry, you already said but. Nor and yet. Okay? Here's how this works. If you cover the conjunction with your hand or on your piece of paper with your finger, and this is a complete sentence, and this is a complete sentence, where do you put a comma? In front of the conjunction. This, right here. Okay? That. Okay? All the time. Now, if you didn't have the I here, okay? Thank you, Stephanie. What would you do?
No comma.
Remove the comma, because this is not a complete sentence. All right, now, ask me your questions. Do not text me later and say, I actually didn't understand the finger rule. Because I'll just like start shaking and stuff. Ask me now if you don't understand this. This is really important to understand where to put commas in your papers. It will help with so much. Now, it could get more complicated, okay? Because you could end up with a sentence like this. All right, so let's say went to the store and I cried. Now this isn't really going to be a good sentence, but that's okay. And I died, okay? All right, there we go. Now what would you have to do with this one? Even though I wouldn't suggest you wrote a sentence like this, right? I'm just making them simple so you can see it. Yes.
With
2 commas. And I cried. And I died. Okay? If you didn't have the I there, then you could remove that comma. Is everybody following that rule? Okay, there will be a quiz next week on this rule. Okay? There will be sample sentences, and you must use the finger rule. Because this is like the one that everybody screws up their commas with. Most of you by now have other commas down. You know that if you have a series of words, you put a comma, whatever. But then otherwise, there's just random commas. Just commas, it's like everybody just goes, comma, right? Don't do that, right? Now, there are optional commas. There are times where I read a sentence and I go, I think he should have put a comma there. And he didn't, but generally, they're pretty known. Okay, now here's the one other rule I'm going to tell you right now. Don't touch the word because with a comma. Okay? Don't do it. I went to the store because I was very, very hungry. Okay, that's not a conjunction. Don't put the comma there. Everybody hear that? So what's the second rule? Don't touch because with a comma. Those 2 rules you're probably going to see on the quiz. Just remember them. Okay? Any questions? Anybody? Even if you think the question is stupid. Yes.
I did the same thing with my daughter, and she's like, Mom, who cares is a comma. And then she goes to college, because I knew what was going to happen. She goes to college, and they wrote it up, and she goes, evidently, this matters. So take it seriously. You'll get filleted in college.
You will. And the other thing is, if you guys don't realize this because what you're reading in books have correct commas. But when I read your paper and it doesn't have a correct comma, do you know what not having a comma makes me do? Which is understandable. I'm the teacher. I'll do it. What does it make the reader do? Reread it. You almost always have to reread a sentence because you lose your train of thought and you can't figure out where they're going. So almost always I have to stop and go, wait a minute, why am I having to reread this sentence? Oh, it's missing something that's keeping my brain reading it correctly. Okay? Those 2 things. Okay. Any other questions that you have outside of the poetry assignment we have? Because I want to talk about that for a minute. Okay, so light students. If you are a light student, I'm going to talk about the poetry paper for a minute. You don't have to listen, but if you are obnoxious, I will just be mad.
I'll handle them.
Sheila's going to handle you. So you may kind of, doodle or do something if you're a light for a few minutes, but my roadsters and logophiles, you need to listen. Okay, so you are going to be starting to work on a paper about poetry. Micah actually did, not to throw you out there, Micah, but Micah actually did a rough draft of it. And actually, Micah, you pulled it off well. Okay, so I have to admit, when you turned it in early, I was like, I haven't even talked about this yet, whatever. You pulled it off well. Okay? You what? You thought it was due. Well, congratulations. Daisy did that once too, so that's all right. She got her paper done really early. So you are going to be writing and I have this in the Google Classroom, this poetry explication essay. All right? And what we are trying to do, and I'm going to pull up one other document that I want to read for you guys. Give me 1 second. So let me find this one page. Okay, so what is the point of writing about poetry? Jan, I can tell you've got some really witty answers brewing that you're holding back from sharing. Is that accurate? You have that Isaac face on you like, she's probably not going to like this answer, so no? Okay. What is the point of writing, of me asking you to tell me about a poem and look at it?
better understand the poem.
Okay, that's a great answer. To better understand the poem. To help you understand what you are reading more fully. Nothing causes a person to make an extra effort to understand difficult material more than writing about it. All right, I know you guys have probably all had this experience where you're told to write about something and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, and you start looking at it, you start thinking about it. Putting it in your own words is important. Why do I give you vocab quizzes that are open note? Isaac, help us out with this one. Isaac and I had this.
I passed.
So
Okay.
we're
I passed.
What is the point of reading vocabulary words on the definition page I have and rewriting them in your own words?
Help us remember them.
Why would it help you remember them, Trent?
Writing stuff helps you remember it.
Writing stuff helps you remember it.
Do you know what happens when you put something in your own words? And my kid knows this because I make him do it.
I can see he's looking at you like, oh,
Your
Mom,
brain-
have you been in cahoots with her?
Yeah. Your brain takes it from short term to long term. So just the act of telling back what you heard or what you read puts it from short term to long term.
I mean, think about it in a conversation with someone, okay? Charlie and I are having a conversation. I'm going, right? And then the next day he says, remember when we talked about that? And I was like, I don't remember anything you said, right? Versus me saying, okay, Charlie, let me see if I understand what you're saying, right? Is it going to be more likely to be in there? Okay, so that's one of the reasons I might say to you, write about the poem. Okay, what's another reason that I might tell you to write about a poem? I've got 3 reasons I'm looking for.
To understand our interpretation of it?
Okay, to understand your interpretation of it. Yes, I think that's a good answer. It wasn't one of the 3 I'm looking for, but to understand what you think, so that I can see what you think about it. Somebody else.
To further dissect the poem, because poems are way more than just the words that you see.
To further dissect the poems, yes, there's much more there, okay? Now, here's the other thing. I hope it helps you enjoy poetry a little bit more. And I know some of you are like, whatever, okay? Anytime you spend a little bit of extra time with something, you might get a little bit more appreciation for it. Okay? This is even true with me with some of the movies my boys have made me watch that I'm like, I don't want to watch this. And then I get into it. And then John did this to me with The Matrix. We were like newly married and he's like, you got to watch The Matrix. I was like, I don't want to watch The Matrix. And we got into the end of the first episode and I was like, okay, where's the second episode, right? Which of course they weren't as good as the first episode, but that's all right. So I wanted to help you enjoy poetry more. Here's the other thing though. You have to be able in your brain, especially those of you who are going to go on to college, to present an idea about something or like a text-based argument. All right? So you have to read a poem and go, okay, this is what I think it's about. This is what I'm going to go for. I'm going to now put that into my own words and explain it to someone. You have to be able to do that. Now, those of you who are like, I'm not going into English. Okay, but you may have to do this in chemistry and math. You have to do these things where you have to read something and you have to be able to present your argument and share it. Okay, so those are all important things. So, a paper that you write about a poem or poems is an argument. Everybody write that down. It's an argument.
The lights out. Write it down.
No, lights are just kind of pretend. Lights are not causing distraction. They're just blending into the furniture, okay? All right? You are
What do you want to write down?
Go ahead. What is it?
He wanted to know.
You're making an argument, okay? Micah's paper, right? And Micah, you probably might not have even realized you did this. Micah was saying, here's what I feel this poem is about, and here's what I got out of it, and here's what I want to argue in that this is about. Does that make sense? Now, you may not even be arguing what the poem is about. You may be arguing of, man, this poem had a lot of symbolism and a lot of really cool stuff in it, and I'm going to argue, and that's not quite the word you want to use, but I want to discuss with you. I want to present to you what this is about. Does everybody follow that? You've got to have something you're trying to tell. Now, my roadsters, I'm only requiring 1 to 2 pages. So you don't have to be as intent with what it's about. But those logophiles that are going to go on the 2 to 3, you got to have something that it's all moving around, or it's going to end up where you're going, there was this symbol, and there was this thing, and there was this thing. And where I'm like, this is really boring, right? You want to get it all moving in the same direction as you talk about your poem. Okay? Does everybody get that? Nod your heads. Anybody not get that? Okay? So, some things you can think about while you are, so the specific argument that you want to make is going to be your thesis. Okay? Everybody seems to forget what a thesis is all the time. Okay? The thesis is sort of the general idea of what you're going to be talking about. That's what the thesis is. Okay? And you're going to support that thesis by using examples and evidence from the poem itself. So let's say you're doing a poem on Emily Dickinson and you want to talk about how morose it is or how whatever it is. And you're going to talk about how her poetry is this way. Then you are going to kind of make that your thesis and then use things throughout the paper to discuss that. So I don't want this to be a paper where you go, well, here's a little theme. I mean, here's a little symbol and here's this was kind of cool and this was kind of cool and this was kind of cool. You got to come up with a general idea of what you are teaching the reader about. Everybody kind of get that? Sarah, what do you think? Okay, so if you're doing a poem about a tree and it has fantastic imagery, then you're going to say, I'm going to be sharing about this poem and I'm going to really be discussing the imagery and how this author, whatever it is. And that's what you're going to focus on. So you can do this in a number of ways, but you got to kind of come up with something that's tying it all together. I can help you with this if you're struggling. You can text me and we can try to come up with this together. So some things that you can write about. This would be a great thing to take notes on. Theme. The genre. Okay, what does genre mean? What do you think, Kari? What do you think genre means? Jan's going to help you behind you.
I was thinking like different types, you know, a different type of poetry.
Yeah, like scary, horrific, you know, verbose, I mean, epic, I mean, romantic, I mean, you know, the genre. Just like when you watch a movie, it fits into a genre. When somebody says, hey, come over to my house and watch this movie, and you'll say, don't worry, it's not a girly movie, right, or whatever. All right, this is an adventure movie, etc. You can look at the rhyme and meter. I'm not spending a lot of time on rhyme and meter because I have horrific memories of it from high school. It was just so hard. So if this is something that you enjoy, you can go further into the rhyme and meter, but I'm not going to really put that on you. You can talk about the figures of speech, and these are all things we've been doing in class in our vocab, right? Metaphors and similes, personification, irony. You could also decide to really look at the cultural context of your poem. If you're doing a poem about slavery, okay, what was going on in the world during this time? And here's the thing, guys. Okay, let's say Jonathan is doing this poem, and he does not want to write this poem, and he really is not into metaphors and similes, and he doesn't want to do this. But the poem is about slavery, right? Could Jonathan, right, discuss how this poem is kind of a representation of what was happening in slavery at the time and sort of give us sort of a historical connection between the poem and slavery? Yes, yes. So you can avoid all that other stuff if you want to, if you're smart about it, okay? And here's the other thing, guys. If you write a good paper, okay, it's clean. It's a clean paper. And I think to myself, well, you didn't really mention this, but it's clean, right? It's very hard to get less than a C on a clean paper. Okay? It can happen, but it's very hard. So, Isaac has done it. But otherwise, so go for it, right? Go for it. All right? All right. Does that help give you all a little bit of direction as you're starting on these papers? Marshall, what do you think? Okay, if you're looking at it, you're going, I still don't know what to do. Maybe you want to choose a different poem. Okay, maybe you want to go in a direction where you're using a poem that's got a lot of historical background, or that was written by someone, you know, that you can tell this other side story about or something. You can be creative with how you're presenting this poem to us. Anna, what do you think? Does that help a little bit? Yes? Okay? All right, I'm putting up tons of stuff about this. Listen to me, you all. Hear me out. And if you're sarcastic with me, I'm going to pummel you. Okay? Am I writing this, am I telling you to write this paper to be mean? No.
No.
No. Honestly, guys, it'd be way easier if I didn't tell you to write the paper, because I have to grade 30 papers. And if they take me 5 minutes a piece, which they take more than that usually, right? Let's say 10 minutes a piece, 10 times 300, you see how many minutes I'm sitting there grading your paper. Okay? Did I add wrong?
You said 10 times 300.
Oh, 30.
3,000.
My husband always says, don't do math in public. You'll always mess it up. Anyways, it's a lot of time. I am doing this because you need to teach your brain to take something that might be challenging and work it into how you're going to say it. You may not end up writing papers. You may end up doing this verbally, but that's why we're doing it. Many of you, even though right now you're kicking and screaming, will go to school or will do some college. Okay, those of you who are lights, that's why I'm letting you move in that direction. Okay, so that's that. Any other questions? Anybody with any questions you want to ask me? Yes.
Since my computer's broken and writing on a page is less
Stinky.
than computers, do you want me to do more pages?
So you can actually Google this, although your computer's broken, so maybe you can't find it. But there actually is a handwritten versus typing sort of ratio. I want to say 4 pages written with double spacing is equivalent to, I can't remember. It is more. It is more.
But if your words are this long, I mean, like.
Yeah. Right. So yes, it would be longer, but you know, I'm not going through and counting your words, but I am looking at something and going, okay, this is supposed to be a page and you have 4 sentences. Like, it's probably not going to work. Okay. I'm not going through and counting your words. I'm trying to push you to get to a certain level. All right. Okay. Now that we're done with that, I have your quizzes. So you're going to get with your group, read the directions carefully. Okay? And then all your work for the next week is up and should be ready to go. So, I need a Huck Finn group. Huck Finn groups. Okay, another Huck Finn group. Come get them. Come get them. All right, yeah, that's great. Or you can do that. So it's like they get 2 pages. So that's a Huck Finn group. That's a Huck Finn group. Okay. Another Huck Finn group if we need it. Okay, so go find. I don't mind if you go in a hall or something as long as you don't embarrass me. Okay? You're not going to fail because you worked on this. Read the directions well. Okay, a Huck Finn group. No words. Oh, sorry. This is good. Call the Wild. Hold on. So, these are like all Huck Finn. I can make copies.
Call the Wild one.
Yeah, they're all, I don't know where they went. Okay, can I have my Call of the Wild back? Okay, we gotta just get some copies of this if you don't mind. Are you familiar with how to make it? Okay, so I'd say like 5 would probably do it. Maybe 10. Just front and back or whatever. Okay, yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay, all right. Hey guys, be quiet. Sit down. She's going to make copies of Call of the Wild. I'm gonna look. Oh, wait a minute, Stephanie, let me check one thing. No, I don't have it. Okay. Somebody messed up how they did my copies. Okay, shh. So Call the Wild, you're waiting on your quizzes. Okay? Huck Finn, you've got your quizzes. Well, here, come get it. I can't reach you. Anybody else need a Huck Finn? Okay, you may use all of your notes together and work on it together. Here, if you guys want it, extra copy to look at? Here, guys, if you want an extra copy to look at, you can. What? I don't know what you're looking
Right on the PDF.
If you're, are you just pulling up your study guide on the phone? All right, if you're sitting there and you just have the study guide up, but just keep it where it's like pretty obvious what you're doing. But you guys, you had to, you separated it up. And do what you got.
Three names, put them together. Put them together. We will. Is that the book or that copy?
Wait, can we use the book?
No. Just your notes. No book use, just notes.